Travis was sweeping when she walked in wearing huge sunglasses and a flowered headscarf covering every strand of her hair. Her outfit was simple and plain, but he knew she was quite wealthy. He knew. Not only because of how she spoke and carried herself when she walked, but because she came into the salon every 2 weeks on the dot. He had only been working here for a couple of months, but the routine was the same each time. She would be greeted by the owner, Frederick, as if she was his favorite customer in the world. She would be passed along to her usual guy Martin, the one who worked so quickly and almost never spoke. Then they would disappear into the private VIP room in the back and emerge some time later with her hair still wrapped up in that scarf. Today was different though. Today Martin had called in sick. Travis watched as Frederick hustled over and timidly spoke with her and rolled his eyes as she got angry. What a bitch, he thought. Still, he was the new guy with a limited clientele and she was obviously important somehow. He saw a shining golden apple of an opportunity dangling in front of him that was too good to pass up. Putting the broom aside, he strode over as confidently as he could just as the woman was shouting, "What am I supposed to do now?" Travis cleared his throat. "Pardon me, ma'am, but I'm available to take care of your needs today in place of Martin if you'll allow me the pleasure." He gave her what he hoped was a winning smile, even making a small bow. She glared at him over her sunglasses. "You." She eyed him up and down and sneered. "You expect to be able to handle my hair today?" His temper flared and he puffed his chest defiantly. Beside him he could hear Frederick stuttering protests, though he didn't hear to whom. "Well look, it seems you're in a bit of a bind and I'm the only one able to help out. Just give me the chance. I'm just as good as Martin. Better even." She glared at him again for a few more seconds, but then sighed heavily. "Such drama for a dumb haircut. Well, fine. You'll have to do, I suppose. Just be sure to work quickly." And with that, she turned on her heel and marched straight to the VIP room. Travis, sighing and rolling his eyes, followed, ignoring Frederick still protesting behind him. Inside the VIP room, only after she was seated and draped did she remove the scarf she was wearing. Her hair was shockingly long, reaching nearly to the floor in enormous tumbles of curls. Additionally, it had the most unusual coloration, black, but with an odd multicolored sheen to it, almost like an oil stain. He ran his hands through the roots of her hair and noted it was very full and thick with an odd, almost slimy texture. While assessing this perplexing hair, Travis was on the verge of asking her about her usual routine to achieve this look when she spoke. "Just trim the back ends by 2 inches, oil generously, and style into a tight bun. No blow dryer. And don't forget, work quickly." Her voice was sharp as a whip. Travis nodded, already regretting this whole thing, and began to work. Having to bend down to reach the ends and level them out, he carefully snipped and snipped and snipped some more, pausing only to make sure he was cutting straight. The hair was not cooperating though. Indeed, it seemed to twist and turn and coil and uncoil. He felt the time drag on as he continuously snipped away, trying desperately not to let his frustration show. He paused for a moment to take a look at his progress when he felt a tug at his pinky finger. He looked down and saw a strand of hair had coiled around it. "It must have gotten tangled around me. Weird. It felt like it moved." He reached over to uncoil his finger when he heard her utter a small chuckle. "Ah, she likes you." He stared at her in the mirror, unsure how to respond. What did she mean, she? Weird bitch, he thought as he nervously gathered another section of hair to trim. As he reached his scissors up to cut, however, he felt it shift in his hand, causing him to cut the tip of his finger. He yelped, startled, and dropped his scissors. He reached down to pick them up, shaking now when he felt a tug on his other hand. The hair was coiled around it, squirming around and in between his fingers and tightening around his wrist. "Work quickly. Please, dear, you must work quickly." Travis heard a hint of nervousness in her voice this time and realized now that she hadn't been telling him to be fast out of impatience on her part. He stared at her face in the mirror now, too freaked out to respond or even move. The thing, this alive thing, it was definitely alive, he was sure of it. It was writhing around his hand faster and more forcefully now, spreading up his arm and tightening around him even more. What is happening? What is going on? What I asked this thing? He squealed, trying to pull his arm back to no avail. "Just a nightmare, just a weird dream. I must have dozed off in the break room. Wake up, man." But he could feel it gripping him, and now he could feel it retracting, pulling him closer and closer, trapping him with more and more tendrils of sleek black hair. He screamed and fought, but it just kept pulling him into the pitch-black mass. The woman sat quietly, still as a statue, eyes closed. After a few minutes she heard no more noise and felt no more movement. Slowly she stood up and moved closer to the mirror in front of her. Behind her, dragging the floor, trailed her mass of inky black curls. A small pair of scissors slipped out from between a few strands as she gathered it up and coiled it into a tight bun, which she covered once more with her scarf. She sighed again, almost sadly, then picked up the scissors and headed for the door. Outside in the main area of the salon, Frederick nervously looked up from his place at the front desk. "Madam, you look marvelous. Is Travis quite well?" She said nothing, only handed him the scissors in reply. He gasped, then sighed and ran his hands through his hair. I see. Yes. Well, He looked around the empty salon and sighed, seeming resigned. Finding new workers who were new to the area and did not have much family was not an easy task. Martin had been lucky so far, but the others had been getting increasingly difficult to replace. The woman pulled out a checkbook and a fancy pen and began to fill in the blanks. She liked him, it seems, she said softly, handing him the check. She had paid for the service with an extremely generous tip. "However, I trust Martin will be well in 2 weeks when I return." At his silent nod, she smiled and turned for the door. She stopped at the doorway and turned to look around the salon, then at Frederick. "I sure hope we never introduce her to someone she doesn't like. I should hate to see anything bad happen here." At that, she exited the salon, leaving a terrified Frederick staring after her.